it is just so exciting to share with people about this extraordinary mechanism of power that we all possess. And in my time with you today, I'm going to share a lot of things with you, a lot of information. I'd like to start by going back to the very beginning when I was in the cabin in British Columbia, Canada, and I was not able to demonstrate mind powers in the beginning. It was all just concept to me. Now, I had read all the books that were available at the time, and I was very knowledgeable intellectually, and I had answers to everything. But there was one problem. I wasn't able to demonstrate it. And I said to myself, there's something wrong here. And so if mind power works, then certainly I have to be able to demonstrate it. And I want to see results in my life. I don't want to hear about how other people are using it. I want to be able to demonstrate it. And so I began to actually move beyond the concept into actual practice. And here's the first thing that I want to share with you, and that is that mind power is not a concept, it's a practice. And you can have all the concepts that you want, and you can have all the knowledge, but if you're not willing or able to practice daily this system, you don't see the results. But when you do practice daily and you do follow the system, then you see extraordinary results. And the very first technique, and I'm going back to the very beginning, the very first technique that I used was the imprinting technique. Now, we share this in the Mind Power program, but I want to just briefly go over it again because this is fundamental in understanding that you reach the subconscious through repetition. And the very first belief that I imprinted into my subconscious mind was that I have unlimited power at my disposal. Now, how I would do this is that I would repeat it to myself over and over again. I have unlimited power at my disposal. I have unlimited power at my disposal. Now, sometimes when I would do that, it would feel very real, and I would agree with it. Other times, it felt very cold and mechanical, almost like I was lying to myself. And that's what you're going to find with mind power when you first begin it, is sometimes it feels real, sometimes it feels authentic, and sometimes you're just going through the motions. But here's the key. I did it every day, whether I felt like it or not. And what happened is somewhere between the 60 and 90 days, what happened is I woke up in the middle of the night, and I woke up with the flaming reality that I have unlimited power at my disposal. And I have had that ever since. I have never had to repeat that again. And it's exactly like it is with the multiplication table. I mean, when I say what's 7 times 7, you know automatically it's 49. What's 10 times 10? You know that it's 100. But have you ever thought about how you know that? You know it because it has been repeated so many times that it has taken an imprint into the subconscious. And this is exactly what you can do, is that you can imprint into your subconscious whatever it is that you choose through repetition, and that you are not limited in any way. Your only limitation is your ability to envision and dream about what you want to have happen in your life. So once I had it imprinted into my mind that I had unlimited power at my disposal, then the next thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to imprint abundance into my life. I wanted abundance. I said, if mind power works, then I should be able to attract to myself any amount of money. I should be able to be tremendously successful financially. Now here I am. I'm living in the woods, living in a cabin with no electricity, with no running water, with no money, and I begin to imprint abundance into my consciousness. And you might say, well, how can you possibly begin to imprint abundance into your consciousness when there's no abundance around? Because I could have just as easily said that I'm broke and I have nothing. But I chose to imprint abundance. And how I did it is that when I would go out to get firewood to heat my cabin, I would go and I would say, look at this stack of wood. Look at how much wood I have. I don't have just one piece of wood. I don't just have two pieces of wood. I don't just have three pieces of wood. I have a whole cord of wood. I have a bunch of wood. I have an abundance of wood. I could have just as easily said, I'm so poor that I don't even have electricity. And that was true. But listen to my words very carefully. I chose, and it's all choice. I chose to say, I have an abundance of wood. Now, sometimes I didn't even have enough money to buy food, and all I could buy was maybe some fruit. And I remember one particular time I was eating some grapes, and as I was eating the grapes, I said, look, I have an abundance of grapes. I don't just have one grape. I don't just have two grapes. I don't just have three grapes. I have an abundance of grapes. And every time that I put a grape into my mouth, I was praising abundance. When I would go out of my cabin at night and I would look out at the stars, and I saw so many stars, and there was an abundance of stars. And during the daytime, I would look at all the beauty around me, and I was saying, there's an abundance of beauty all around me. And then once a week, I would drive into the local town close to where I live to pick up some supplies and some kerosene to light my lamp. And I would look at these buildings and I would say, somebody owns that building and that person has abundance. And here's a little secret right now, is that you can vibrate with abundance, other people's abundance as well. It doesn't just have to be your own. And so I would look at these buildings and I would say, the people that own those, they are rich people. They have an abundance of money. And so what I was doing is I was programming my consciousness for abundance. And when I first began to teach mind power, I insisted that I would hold it in 5-star hotels, the best of hotels, because I wanted abundance vibration. Now, I couldn't even afford to stay in that 5-star hotel. So after the seminar was over, what would happen, I would answer all the questions, and then I would go back to my hotel, which was not the 5-star hotel. And I said to myself, no, I'm going to stay in 5-star hotels because I have an abundance of consciousness. And over a period of months, I started earning more and more money. And I started staying in the five-star hotels. And I started attracting large numbers of people to my seminars. And I'm going to fast forward now 5 years. I fly into Sydney and I check into the presidential suite of the Sheraton Hotel. And what was so interesting about this suite that I was staying at is it was the same suite that the Beatles stayed at. And I thought that was so cool. I said, this is amazing. I'm here in this place where the Beatles had stayed. And I'd walk around the suite and went, probably John Lennon played his guitar here. And then it was an amazing suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbour. And it had all these bedrooms and huge living rooms, and it had a kitchen. And there I am on my own. And not only had I checked into the presidential suite of that hotel, I checked in for a whole month. A month. And I walked out to the balcony. I had a beautiful balcony overlooking the harbor. And I said to myself, this is so extraordinary. I have gone from a cabin in the woods with no electricity, with no running water, with no money, with no idea of how I was going to create abundance for myself. And yet here I am 5 years later, staying in the presidential suite, and I'm staying there for a month. Now, the reason that I'm sharing this story with you is I want you to know that Mind Powers works extraordinarily well. And it doesn't just work for me. It works for every single person that applies these principles in their life. And that's why I love sharing these techniques. Now, I've got to share one more story with you back at that time.